The Great Battle, Triumph of the Divine Feminine Storm before dawn. The night before the final confrontation, an unnatural quiet settled over the island of Lesbos. Sappho stood at the highest point of the sanctuary, watching distant torches flicker along the shoreline where the ships of Adam's followers had anchored. Above, the stars seemed to dim, as if even celestial bodies sensed the impending clash of primal forces. "They've surrounded us completely," Diana reported, materializing silently beside the poet. The huntress had spent the night scouting enemy positions, moving invisible under moonlight. Thor's storm is gathering to the east. Goliath and his giants have taken position in the northern hills. Adam leads men from the west, and Abraxas. She hesitated. "What of the Archon?" Sappho asked. "He seems to be everywhere and nowhere," Diana admitted. "His presence shifts like smoke." Rebecca approached, her aged frame belying her inner strength. The matriarch's eyes reflected wisdom earned through decades of navigating patriarchal systems. "I've seen this moment," she said quietly. "In my dreams, this island stands at a crossing point between two possible worlds." Lilith emerged from the shadows, her form briefly rippling with serpent scales before settling into human appearance. "Adam has brought the flaming sword from Eden's gate. He believes it gives him the authority of his god." Hecate joined them last, herbs and mysterious substances hanging from her belt. The torch she carried burned with green flame that cast no shadows. "The barriers between worlds are growing thin tonight. I've sealed what pathways I could, but Abraxas knows ancient ways of unmaking boundaries." "And Sophia?" Sappho asked, noticing the wisdom goddess's absence. "Preparing," Hecate replied cryptically. "Some battles must be fought on multiple planes of existence simultaneously." Sappho looked at each of them, divine women from different traditions, each carrying powers and traumas inflicted by systems that feared what they could not control. "They expect us to fight as they do," Sappho said, "with force against force, power against power." "Is that not why we've prepared?" Diana asked, fingers brushing her bow. "No," Sappho smiled. "That is precisely what we must not do. Their strength comes from opposition and domination. Ours must come from harmony and transformation." Rebecca nodded slowly. "My vision showed not a battle won by defeating enemies, but by changing the very nature of conflict itself." "They won't give us that chance," Lilith warned. "Adam has nursed his wounded pride for millennia. He comes to subjugate, not to understand." "Then we must show them what they refuse to see," Sappho replied. "Each of you knows your position for tomorrow. Rest now. Dawn brings our greatest challenge and our greatest opportunity." As the women dispersed, Sappho remained watching the enemy fires. Quietly, she began composing verses that would either save their sanctuary or mark its final hours. Diana's arrows. The storm clouds gathered unnaturally fast as Thor approached the eastern shores, his massive hammer swinging overhead, generating thunderclaps that shook the island to its foundations. Lightning split the sky in jagged bursts, reflecting off his gleaming armor. Behind him sailed a fleet of warships carrying Adam's devoted followers, men who believed women's knowledge was a threat to the natural order. Diana stood alone on the cliffside, bow in hand, the silver light of the full moon somehow cutting through Thor's storm clouds to illuminate her figure. "A single woman against the god of thunder?" Thor laughed, his voice booming across the churning waves. "Where is your army, huntress?" Diana notched an arrow. "I need no army to defeat one who relies on noise and spectacle." Thor hurled his hammer directly at her, a blow that had felled giants and monsters across 9 worlds. Diana did not dodge. She simply tilted her head slightly as the massive weapon passed through the space where she had appeared to stand. "An illusion?" Thor bellowed in confusion. "Moonlight contains many truths," Diana's voice came from behind him. You see only what you expect to see. When Thor spun around, he found himself surrounded by 12 identical images of Diana, each with arrows drawn. He swung wildly, his hammer passing through several illusions. You fight like a man, Diana said, all force and fury, revealing your intentions with every movement. Thor summoned a massive lightning bolt, obliterating several of the images, but more appeared. Face me directly, coward, he roared. I already am, Diana replied, her voice now seeming to come from everywhere at once. But you've never learned to truly see women. We exist in the spaces you ignore, the subtle places your brute force cannot touch. As Thor expended his godly strength trying to fight 12 opponents at once, Diana's real position remained concealed in plain sight, kneeling behind a rock just 20 paces away. She drew back her bowstring, her arrow gleaming with concentrated moonlight. Precision defeats brute force, she whispered, and loosed her arrow. The moonlit projectile struck perfectly, not to kill, but to pierce the ancient rune at the center of Thor's chest plate, the source of his weather control. The storm clouds immediately began to dissipate, and his strength faltered. Impossible, Thor gasped, dropping to one knee. My father's magic was always incomplete. Diana approached him now, visible and unafraid. Odin knew only half the world's wisdom, rejecting the knowledge of women. His enchantments were powerful but unbalanced. The thunder god's legendary hammer suddenly felt unbearably heavy in his hand. For the first time in his immortal existence, Thor felt the true nature of the weapon, not just as an instrument of destruction, but as a tool that could either break or build. You sought to conquer what you didn't understand, Diana said, standing over him now. That is always the mistake of those who choose dominance over harmony. Thor's stormy gaze met hers. Would you kill a defeated god, Huntress? No, Diana replied. That would be your way, not mine. She extended her hand. I offer something far more difficult than death, Thunderer. I offer understanding. Behind them, the fleet that had accompanied Thor found their ships mysteriously becalmed in suddenly placid waters, unable to reach the shore. Hecate's crossroads magic. While Diana engaged Thor at the eastern shore, another battle unfolded in the northern hills. Goliath and his fellow giants uprooted ancient trees to use as clubs, their massive footsteps creating tremors in the earth as they approached the sanctuary. These women hide behind tricks and illusions, Goliath bellowed to his followers. But what magic can stand against our strength? We will crush their bones and scatter their secrets to the wind. The giants reached a curious ring of stones that marked the northern boundary of the sanctuary. As Goliath stepped across the threshold, the air shimmered strangely around him. More illusions, he scoffed, swinging his tree club at the nearest standing stone. But the club passed through the stone as if it were mist, throwing Goliath off balance. When he regained his footing, he found himself alone in a gray, misty landscape, his companions nowhere to be seen. Welcome to the space between spaces, Hecate's voice echoed from all directions. The goddess of crossroads materialized before him, torch in hand, its green flame the only color in the monochrome void. Witch! Goliath charged, but with each step, Hecate seemed no closer. You cannot reach me through force, she said calmly. This is a crossroads realm, where all paths exist simultaneously. Only those who understand the nature of thresholds can navigate here. Return me to battle, the giant demanded. This is the battle, Hecate replied. Though not the kind you expected. She waved her torch, and suddenly Goliath was surrounded by doorways floating in the void, each showing a different scene. Look upon the consequence of brute strength divorced from wisdom. The doors revealed images of devastation caused by giants throughout history, villages crushed, innocent lives destroyed, civilizations driven to create weapons of increasing lethality to counter the threat of physical might. "This is the glory of war," Goliath insisted, but his voice lacked conviction. "This is the fallacy of domination," Hecate corrected. "Those who rule by size alone leave nothing but destruction in their wake." She placed her torch on the ground, where it continued to burn without fuel. From her robes, she produced a cup filled with a dark liquid. "Giants can be wise, Goliath of Gath. Your people were craftsmen once, builders of wonders, before men like you chose the path of conquest." "Lies," Goliath muttered, but his eyes remained fixed on the shifting images in the doorways. "The choice is yours," Hecate offered the cup. "Drink, and I will reduce your physical stature but restore the wisdom your kind has forgotten. Refuse, and remain trapped in this crossroads forever. Too large to pass through any door that leads back to the world." Outside the boundary stones, Goliath's fellow giants watched in confusion as their leader stood frozen, engaged in conversation with empty air. When some attempted to cross the stone circle themselves, they found their massive bodies unable to penetrate an invisible barrier. Inside the crossroads realm, Goliath stared at the cup. "You would make me small and weak." "I would make you proportionate and wise," Hecate corrected. "True strength isn't measured by the shadow you cast, but by the light you carry." With trembling hands large enough to crush her, Goliath accepted the cup and drank.